On this video, we're gonna go over how to do the RNAV GPS runway 31 in Palo Alto, California. We're gonna be flying a Cessna 182 G1000, the Garmin G1000. At the current moment, we are just outside Sapit for the initial approach fix. So we're gonna be flying the full approach. Palo Alto is a little bit different because it has a short runway. So we're gonna be setting up flaps 20, 2 miles prior to the final approach fix. Not 2 miles, and 2 miles we're gonna start configuring, but we wanna be configured at the final approach fix with flaps 20. Like in all of our videos, these videos are intended for educational and entertainment purposes. You gotta seek instruction from a certified flight instructor. We do offer remote instruction at ReadyRoger.com, and we have a simulator, which is what you're going to be seeing here at Aviator NYC in Manhattan. Any instrument approach, you load it, you check it, you brief it. So the first thing we're going to do is press flight plan. And with that note, remember these videos are being recorded in 4K. So if you need to zoom in on one of the screens, be sure to do it by making sure that your player is displaying 4K resolution, and then you can just zoom in on the corner. You can also pause this video, take a screenshot, and come back to it later because these videos are very condensed. There's a lot of information in this 15 to 20 minutes. So we're gonna press flight plan, push the FMS keys, procedure, select approach. That's not where we are. We're not in England and no more, which is an excellent point. On the top left, there's going to be a recommendation because we did an approach in Cranfield using the OBS, and it was an NDV approach. Check the link up there. So what I did here, I'll go over small knobs to the left, small knobs to the right, went to nearest, and looked at Palo Alto, Kilo Papa Alpha Oscar. Press enter, it gets us there. Then we're not going to select procedure, select approach, and not right away it actually loads the approach. That's what I did it this way. On our videos, I think there's the one in Titusville. Take a look at it because there we show you how you can change it in here. The initial approach fix is going to be Sapit. I'll reposition the simulator for this. 460 are our minimums. They're barometric. 460. Enter, load. I like to load. I don't like to activate the approach. So now you see, this is what I said I'm going to reposition the simulator. Is because it gives us that crazy U-turn, which is not bad, but we can do better. So now, very big confusion that I have quite often when I'm providing instruction here at Aviator NYC is a lot of people like to press procedure, activate approach. Next time you want to do that, grab your hand, slap it, because you're right, it will do it, but that's not the default, right? We need to think about this in a logical sense. Sapit is ahead of us. Granted, we got to wait for the ATC instruction, but in this case, let's assume that the ATC instruction is cross Sapit, direct Sapit, cross Sapit at about 4,800, we're clear for the approach. That's our ATC clearance. So now I'm going to push the FMS knobs, highlight Sapit, direct, enter, enter. That does the exact same thing as pressing procedure, activate approach. When you're activating approach, roll the dice and see what you get depending on the G1000 version that you're flying. So that's why I'm recommending have control of what you're loading on the computer. So now we can press nav. So we loaded the approach. How about we check it, right? I'm going to push the FMS knobs, scroll all the way to the bottom. That way we can see the whole approach. So Sapit out about 4,800, 052. This is showing 054. Docal 4,500, and I see that. Alpha Charlie Hotel Oscar Zulu, and that's going to be down here now, 3,500. And how about this? I'm using my finger, which is what I normally do when somebody's in person. Here we're doing it on a video, so how about I correct that for 3,500. Pudby, 2,200. Notice, and I'll use my mouse pointer for this, Pudby is showing us 2,200 in white. This is not going to be honored by the VNAV. This is going to be only honored by LNAV, which is a point that I didn't make before. This is, if we look up here, it says LNAV plus VNAV. This is an LNAV approach. We'll see the minimums are here, but if you're using JEPs, FAAs are slightly better. you have the time at home, this is the great time for you to go get your iPad, look up the approach, and look up this approach and see what is showing on the FAA charts and compare what JEPs versus FAA. But this is just showing us MDA. This is giving us plus V. When it gives us plus V, it's saying that the Garmin G1000 is going to give us a vertical profile to follow. However, we are still responsible for not only the descent angle, but also to meet the restrictions inside the funnel approach fix. In this case, we don't have any. The only thing we have is 4-degree angle of descent, then there's 3. So here, we're still going to be descending via the VNAV, not the VNAV, but the vertical navigation, not this VNAV. Well, I'll show you. We're going to be using the glide path, not the vertical profile. So now POV, GetV is the missed approach. We're climbing a 1,400, then a right turn to San Jose and hold on the 086. This, 086, 286. This says 289. It's close enough. We're going to go with what this is showing us in here. So now that we load the approach, let's how about we brief it. We're doing the Palo Alto RNAV runway 31 effective 13 of August 12-1. If we have another pilot, they'll check the date. How about this? I don't normally do this because this would have been done beforehand, but I'm going to set it anyways. 3275, NorCal 213. I don't brief these frequencies, right? Because this would have been already set up. I just use them as a reference point. Because I'm doing these videos, I'm just going to do it here. That way you see how the radio setup should be urban ship style, right? We want to have ATC on COM1, secondary frequencies on NAV2. So we have the fun approach fix 322. This is going to be 324. POV 2200, which checks. Now LDA is 460. I'll press the time ref key, which is already set, and we'll see that 460 here. Touchdown elevation is 70. We have the approach lighting system inside. We can descend down to 107 feet. The notes should be checked prior to the flight. If there's anything important, make sure you highlight it. The one thing it says here, final approach course is offset by 15 degrees, so that is important. Threats, there's terrain where we're flying over these mountains here, which we also see in the synthetic vision, and there's terrain on the east side of the airport. POV 2200, 4-degree angle of descent with descending down to 460, 1 mile visibility, which is what we have. In case we have to go miss, make sure forward, props forward, throttles forward, disengage the autopilot 10 degrees, nose up, press nav, clean up the airplane, flaps up, and then we're going to fly the mist. Before that, prior to fun approach fix, 2 miles prior, we want to be inside 140. About 1 mile, we're going to lower 10 degrees of flaps and fly this approach. I'm going to unpause the sim now. That way we get going in that direction. Now, if you remember, our clearance was cross Sapid out of 4,800, clear for the approach. So because we're clear for the approach, not only I'm going to arm the approach, which is different between arming the approach and activating the approach. Activating the approach is the flight management system. Arming the approach is going to be here on the scoreboard and the status box of what the simulator, what the airplane should be doing. Then I'm going to set 3,500. I'm going to set about 20 inches. And I'm going to be waiting for that vertical track, which should happen in the next 3 minutes. Here we're making the right turn. One thing regarding the approach configuration, in the introduction I mentioned we're going to be doing flaps 20. It is true because this is a short runway, so flaps 10 is going to come up about 1.5. 1 mile is going to be flaps 20, and we're going to be flying this approach roughly about 85 to 90 knots. Two minutes and 15 seconds. I'm going to accelerate the simulator. I'm going to go 20 inches. How about I go 2200 RPM? I'm going to slow it down so we hear the vertical track. It generally comes up about 1 minute out.
Vertical track.
There it is. I'm going to press VNAV. So I'm going to read the status box. GPS autopilot altitude 4,800. VNAV path, glide path. Once it changes from, and I'll show you, from this V to a G, we're going to be following the glide path. That's the one we got to monitor very closely because we need to be flying a 4-degree descent angle. One thing is going to happen here when we do this VNAV descent, I'm going to have to pull the power. That's a very common mistake. There's the descent. I'm going to pull the power back. Let me get the mouse pointer out of the way. And now what the VNAV is going to do is going to honor that 4,500 for SoCal. 331, 2 miles. And because this is not a flyby, this is a flyby, not a flyover point. That's why it's cutting the corner there. And now we're still 7 miles from the runway. Not from the runway, from the final approach fix. I'm actually going to set 2,200, but I know what's going to happen. And what is going to happen here is going to level off 3,500. The sensitivity of the CDI is going to switch to LNAV plus VNAV, and it's not going to continue that descent down to 2,200. At least that's what I suspect is going to do. Here we're leveling off. I'll add power, and there it is. So because I actually did exactly what I thought it was going to do, LNAV, VNAV plus V, and it switched that V to a G. What it indicates, this is not a VNAV profile. This is following the vertical navigation of the approach, right? This gets into WAAS and all this other good stuff, which is beyond the scope of this video. And that's the reason why this is more of a This is more of a practical video, and this is glide path. Now we're going to be intercepting the glide path early. We're inside 140. Instead of doing a power reduction, I'm going to lower 10 degrees of flaps. Glide path, set missed approach altitude, 3,000. And it's probably going to ding us because we're going to overshoot that altitude. Overshoot it is we capture it from above. Therefore, we're still within that 300 feet range. It could be 300, it could be 1,000 feet, depending on the G1000 version. And we need to be inside 120 for flaps 20. Let me get the mouse pointer out of the way. That's what I was talking about. So you see how it kind of gets into, we're not used to seeing that. Some avionics don't honor if it's in other than the standard like color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to recycle either left or big knob or small knob. I'm going to turn left, right. You can do right, left. Doesn't matter. As long as you just cycle it back into what we're normally used to seeing, which is that aqua color 3000. Inside the, we're still 0.5 miles, flaps 20, and we're inside 120 knots. And now we're going to start our, I wouldn't say I want to slow down very quickly, but I do want to be slowing down to 95 knots, which is what I mentioned earlier, going to be the approach speed that I want for this approach because it's a fairly short runway. In real life, you can fly it slower. Just know your airplane and actually hire an instructor to work with you. Don't just take my word on what I'm doing in these videos because I'm just showing you what the simulator does. Simulator and the airplane are two different things. This is about procedures. And that's why a lot of people seek our instruction here at Aviator NYC because they want to master what's going on in the procedure. That way, when they get to the airplane, you're dealing with all the other 1,000 elements that go on in the airplane. 4 miles, 3.7 miles for the final missed approach point. So I want to be between 85 and 90, and we're at 90. I think we can slow it down a little bit more. and we're inside 1,000. $80 knots is still looking good, so I want to 80. This is a 2,000 and change foot runway, and I can see that I would not be doing this, but I just want to show you it's 2,400, just a feature of the G1000 flight plan. When you are 500 inside the final approach fix, it's text and driving. It's the equivalent. Don't be messing around other than just find the approach. 400. I don't want to get it slower than 75. And the reason is that attitude start creeping up on me. 75 is the slowest. Now, because this is a short runway and I have the airport inside 200 feet, 100, and I have the airport inside, I want to show you what it looks like landing. And I'm not going to land the airplane. Autopilot disengage. Now, I'm going to stay with the flight director, 75 knots. One common mistake is people start lowering the flaps. It's very dangerous inside in this altitude. So you don't have the visual cues that you normally on a regular VFR flight you do. So that's why keep the configuration, because this is a short runway, and you see how now I am lowering my, let me stick with the VNAV path here, because it is getting me very close. Now 70 knots is low. Allow power, stay within my flight director. There's a little bit of wind here. But the important thing is just don't go lower flaps. You're already committed. You already have the landing performance. You should have checked as well before you come in here. We do have other videos here in the San Francisco area. Make sure to check it out. If you're looking for remote instruction, we do provide, if you have a home simulator, we can do Zoom, log in remotely, and we can go over a lot of the instrument ground school. Not ground school as the technical pass and the written, but as the technical application of instrument flying. We can go over that and bring it alive in your home simulator. Make sure you visit our website, ReadyRoger.com. If you're ever in Manhattan, make sure you take a look at our other website, Aviator NYC.